She clinked her glass against mine, lips still glossy from the last fake smile she gave the investor across the room. The music thumped overhead, some overplayed remix trying to drag the staff into one last round of forced celebration. I'd been to 12 of these holiday parties. I knew the rhythm. Too much Prosecco, too many promotions announced for people who didn't deserve them, and always, a moment when someone lost their mask. I just didn't know this year it would be her. She laughed, louder than usual. Then, suddenly, she kicked off her heels and climbed up onto the glass table like she belonged there. Conversations dimmed, and phones rose like flowers facing the sun. Her voice cut through the room. "Everyone in this room is better than you." She pointed straight at me, her smile wide, manic, rehearsed. Then she twisted, skirt catching air, and jumped into the arms of our new junior analyst, the one who couldn't code a macro to save his life. They stumbled, laughed. She kissed his cheek. The room didn't quite cheer, but it didn't stop her either. No one moved to help me or say anything. My glass was still half full. I took one sip, then set it down on the table she'd just danced on and walked out. No drama, no words, just the sound of my shoes on polished concrete and the sudden awareness that I had become invisible to the people I once thought I led. If this already pulled you in, do me one favor. Like the video and subscribe. It keeps this going for the people who need it most. The night air was cold. It helped. I didn't go home, didn't even check my phone. I drove without music. Windows cracked just enough to keep me alert. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. It felt like I was leaving a theater mid-play, while everyone else kept clapping for an ending I no longer believed in. At a gas station an hour outside the city, I took off my ring, slid it into the glove compartment without a sound. That ring had meant something once, before the parties, before the strategic partnerships, before her name got printed on glossy brochures as my co-founder and wife, before she became someone who saw performance as affection, who thought the louder the laugh, the deeper the love. When we started the company, we worked side by side in a sublet office with flickering lights and one space heater. She used to fall asleep on the floor with a laptop on her chest and a highlighter still in her hand. Back then, I believed in her more than I believed in anything, but somewhere along the way, her gaze shifted, upward, outward. She loved to be watched, needed it, and I became the man behind the woman who took all the credit and none of the blame. But the party? That was something else. That was a line not even she could walk back from. Not because of the betrayal, not even the spectacle, but because of how well she played it. Like she'd been rehearsing. Like she knew this would be her moment. At dawn, I stopped at a 24-hour diner. The server asked if I wanted coffee or a full breakfast. I asked for just hot water and sat there until the sun began to break over the horizon. I didn't check my phone. I knew she'd be calling, crying maybe, or furious, or both, but I wouldn't be there to hear it. I left my phone in the glove box too. By 8 a.m., I had logged into our joint account and transferred every asset to her name, every car, every property, every line item I no longer wanted tied to me. I even paid off her half of the mortgage. That way, when the question started, she couldn't say I'd taken anything but my silence. I made one phone call to a notary, a favor from an old friend. By noon, I'd signed a full waiver, not of marriage, not yet, just of assets, control, presence. It was like drafting my own obituary and publishing it while still breathing. I packed one bag, no notes, no hints, just one suitcase of clothes I didn't care about, and one laptop that didn't sync with anything we'd built together. I left the key in the mailbox, walked down the front steps, and never looked back. She would wake to an empty closet, an untouched breakfast table, a bathroom counter suddenly missing its matching toothbrush. She'd call. Of course she would, maybe even beg. She was always good at swinging between fury and regret, but nothing would go through. I had made sure of that. I didn't vanish. I extracted myself. Surgical, quiet, clean. And somewhere, beneath all her bluster, she would realize that this quiet, was the loudest thing I'd ever done. The first thing I did was drain the joint account. Not to take, but to give. Every cent she could have accused me of withholding, I pushed to her. Every car title, property deed, insurance policy, signed over, notarized, certified. I left them all in a black folder marked yours, sitting in the exact spot where she used to leave my morning coffee. There was no note, just silence, deliberate surgical silence. I closed my personal accounts next, deleted passwords from memory, logged out of everything. My inbox gone, my socials deactivated, even my childhood email, the one only my mom still used, I left it blank, stripped of any forwarding. No trail, not even crumbs. I wiped the slate until even I couldn't remember who I'd been with her. The phone went last. I watched the screen glow one final time, her name blinking like a flare in the dark. 6 calls in under 10 minutes. Then it went dark, factory reset, SIM destroyed. I placed it on the counter next to my ring and my ID badge still clipped from the party. Symbols of a man she no longer recognized because she never truly looked. I didn't take the car. I walked past our building's front desk where the security guard gave me a nod, unaware he'd never see me again. Past the cafe where we used to sit and argue about fonts for pitch decks. Past the subway station where she once kissed me before a board meeting and told me, "We're unstoppable." I remember because it was the last time I believed her. I booked a one-way ticket under a name I'd never used before. Not fake, just forgotten. One my grandmother used to call me, soft and safe. At the bus terminal, I sat surrounded by strangers, all of them scrolling, talking, checking in. I had nothing to check. I had made myself unfindable. The apartment was technically still mine that week. Legally, but emotionally, spiritually, it had become hers long ago. The moment she chose an audience over a partner, the moment she climbed onto that table and performed betrayal like it was a TED Talk. I redirected all physical mail to a P.O. box that didn't exist, a number on a form that led nowhere. The lease, signed over. Rent paid through the next 6 months. No disputes, no excuses, just a clean exit. The legal document relinquishing my rights arrived at her door 3 days later, a single envelope, heavy with finality. Inside, notarized letters of asset release, power of attorney voided, emergency contacts cleared. She got everything. Except me. She called. Of course she did. Within hours, the missed calls hit triple digits, 154 by day 2. By then, I imagined she was starting to panic, not because I left, but because I didn't tell her how. No yelling, no accusations, just an empty home and a silence thick enough to drown in. She tried the people around me, HR, legal, even my old mentor from our first accelerator program. No one had answers. I hadn't left breadcrumbs. I hadn't even left a scent. Just one clean exit wound still bleeding on her conscience. The day after the envelope arrived, she posted a photo. Just her, wine glass in hand, staring out over the city. Caption, "Every ending is a new beginning." The likes came fast. So did the comments. "You've got this." "Stronger than ever." "Rebirth." I read them from a borrowed device at a bus station 6 states away, and I felt nothing, because she didn't know. Not really, not yet. That the worst thing I could have done wasn't leave. It was remove myself from the narrative entirely, erase my name from the credits of the show she still thought she was starring in. She had a stage and no scene partner, an audience and no act. And in that growing silence, the echo was mine. It's funny how absence can take up more space than presence ever did. She would search for me in mutual friends' photos, in passing mentions, in tagged locations. But I was gone, not just from her life, from the version of me she thought would never leave. And the more she screamed into the void, texting, calling, posting, the more that silence closed around her like a seal. She had the apartment, the cars, the equity. She just didn't have anyone to hand it all to and say, "Look, I won." Because winning only matters if someone's keeping score, and I wasn't playing anymore. She didn't panic right away. At first, she told herself it was just a tantrum, a dramatized exit. I'd be back. I always came back. We'd argue, circle each other, lick our wounds. She'd say something cutting. I'd get quiet. We'd pretend it hadn't happened. That had been the cycle for years. Familiar in its dysfunction, addictive in its rhythm, but this time the silence didn't blink. The door didn't creak open. No suitcase returned to the hallway. By day 3, she started calling everyone she thought I couldn't live without. Our HR director, Lynn, the one who danced with us at our wedding. "I just need to know if he showed up for work." Lynn's voice stayed neutral. "We haven't heard from him. His access card was deactivated." That was true. I left it beside the ring. Next was Eric, the college friend turned co-founder who had introduced us at a product launch. "Is he with you?" she asked, barely keeping the edge out of her voice. Eric sighed. "If he was, I'd say so. He hasn't answered me either." She tried our neighbor, the barista downstairs, even the old landlord from our first apartment. Nothing. Everyone said the same thing. "He's gone, and he didn't leave a map." When she reached my mother, she expected at least a crack, something maternal and soft that might slip. But my mother had been waiting for this moment longer than anyone. She told her calmly, "If he wanted you to find him, you would have. He doesn't make mistakes." Then she hung up. That's when she filed the missing person report. She didn't want to. It meant admitting that something was wrong, that I wasn't pouting in a hotel or crashing with a friend or plotting a dramatic return. A uniformed officer came to the apartment and asked routine questions. "When did you last see him?" "At the party." "Did he say anything before leaving?" "No, he didn't say anything at all." Her voice cracked a little there. The detective asked if I had enemies. She blinked, confused. "No," she said, he's not like that." "Like what?" he asked. "The kind who makes enemies." She didn't add, "He just leaves." But she thought it. They checked airports, no tickets, train stations, nothing. ATM logs, inactive, cell activity, dead, email, dormant. The name didn't light up anywhere. No hospital admissions, no hotel check-ins, not even an IP address pinged from any device they could trace back to me. In desperation, she hired a private investigator, a stocky, retired cop type with a Bluetooth in his ear and a half-smoked cigar in his coat pocket. He dug deeper, scanned tax filings, cross-checked DMV records in 4 states, used facial recognition software on Instagram tags. All he found were holes where I used to be. "It's like he dissolved," he muttered, flipping close his notepad. "Most people leave a trail even when they don't want to. Your guy, he cleaned it all." She didn't believe him. Not at first. She demanded a second opinion, a younger PI, more tech-forward, more aggressive. He called 2 weeks later. "There's no digital footprint after the night he left, no geotags, no purchases. It's like you're trying to find a man who never existed." She stood in the bathroom that night staring at the counter. My toothbrush, my cologne, gone. Only hers remained, and somehow that emptiness was louder than any presence had ever been. She left the light on in the hallway when she went to bed, then got up 15 minutes later to check the front door. Again, just in case. She told herself she wasn't scared, just unsettled, unnerved. It was temporary. He'd be back. Or at least leave a message, but there was none. No anger, no cruelty, no accusation to fight against. Just air, space, and the creeping suspicion that the silence wasn't a pause. It was in a decision. The apartment began to feel too big, too quiet. She started sleeping with the lights on. She left the TV running low just to fill the static. She began checking shadows twice, once when she entered a room, again before she left it. She told her assistant at work she was just tired, overworked, stressed from the holidays. But at night, when everything slowed and the wine wore off, the void pressed in, and the questions she once dismissed as petty now looped on a reel in her head. Where did he go? What does he want? Is he watching? Has he already started something else? And then the worst question of all, what if he's not coming back because he doesn't need to, because he already said everything he needed to say by disappearing so completely? It wasn't revenge, not the way she understood it. It was something colder, smarter. She had stood on a table to make a scene. He vanished and turned the silence into a mirror. And now, every time she looked in it, she saw exactly who she was without someone standing beside her. The morning after she filed the missing person report, she showed up at work like nothing had happened. Pencil skirt, hairpinned, latte in hand, the same overcompensating smile she always wore after one of her episodes. She stepped into the open office space like it still belonged to her, like people hadn't seen her leap into the arms of a junior analyst in a glittering dress, drunk on attention. But the temperature had changed. Eyes flicked up, then quickly down. Conversation softened the moment she approached. The receptionist, once chirpy and overeager, barely nodded as she walked by, and her assistant, usually ready with printed agendas and a snappy, "You're gonna kill it today," was suddenly working remotely, Her team didn't say anything out loud, not at first. They rescheduled meetings last minute, failed to CC her on internal updates. When she sat down in the conference room, two of them didn't show. One left his coffee cup behind like he couldn't stand the idea of coming back. And then there was the analyst, the same boy who'd caught her midair, grinned smug, arms too ready. He didn't speak to her that morning. Just sent a short clinical email at 8:42 a.m. Subject, transition. Body. Per our conversation, I've decided to transfer departments effective immediately. No need for a formal send-off. Thank you for the opportunity. No signature, no warmth. She stared at the screen for a long time. Reread it. Clicked his name to open the employee directory. Status, pending move. He hadn't even waited a full business day. He'd been the prize, the performance, the point. And now he wanted nothing to do with her. The head of her division stopped by that afternoon. Normally, he cracked a joke, offered a fist bump, or said something obnoxious about hitting Q1 targets. This time, he stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You've had a big couple of weeks," he said. "Might be worth taking some time. Think about wellness leave. HR can help coordinate." His tone wasn't concern. It was cleanup. She forced a smile. "I'm fine." He didn't smile back. "Just think about it." When he walked away, he didn't look back. That night, she went home and poured herself a glass of wine she couldn't finish. She scrolled through photos from the party, half stills of people, mid-laugh, blurred dancing, a few selfies with partners and clients. She wasn't in many, just one, on the table, arm raised, a blur of motion and teeth. No one had even tagged her. She opened the group chat with her sister, typed, "Can we talk?" and hit send. The reply came quickly. "I'll be over in 20. They sat on the couch without talking at first. Her sister brought takeout and kept the TV low. Eventually, the question came. "Why'd you do it?" she asked, not unkindly. She shrugged, cheeks hot. "I don't know. It was supposed to be funny." Her sister said nothing. Then, after a long pause, "Have you seen that billboard, the new co-working space in the tech district?" She frowned. "What billboard?" "There's this guy, he's all over the marketing campaign. Tall, sharp suit, doesn't smile, kinda intense." "So?" Her sister pulled up a photo on her phone, a street-level shot of a towering black and white ad, a glass building rising behind him. The slogan read, "Build quiet, move fast," but it was the face that made her drop the phone. It wasn't a perfect match. The beard was trimmed tighter, the eyes older, the body stronger, broader, like someone who'd rebuilt from the inside out, but it looked like him, enough that she couldn't breathe. She picked up the phone with shaking hands, zoomed in, looked for a name. Eli Grant, co-founder. Not his name, not the one she knew, but the jawline, the stillness, the posture that said, "I don't need you to recognize me. I've already moved past you." Her sister watched her carefully. "You think it's him?" She didn't answer. Later that night, after her sister left, she walked the apartment, room to room, opened drawers, touched the closet door like it might answer her. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the empty pillow beside hers, the side he hadn't slept on in weeks before he left. Her world was shrinking. Every room felt like a stage she could no longer control. Every hallway at work whispered a version of her story she hadn't written. Every laugh in the break room wasn't with her, it was about her. And now, maybe he wasn't missing. Maybe he'd just rewritten himself without telling her. Changed the script, recast the lead. She went online, searched the name, the company. There wasn't much, just soft press from a local business journal. Visionary founder, mysterious background, no interviews. It was like he had planned this, and now she was the one left staring through the glass, wondering how much of him had ever truly belonged to her. The ghost she thought she created was building something, quietly, without her, and he was no longer a memory. He was becoming a myth. 300 miles south, no one knew my name, not the real one, not the one she used when she shouted across ballrooms or signed company holiday cards with both our names like we were still in it together. Here I was Eli Grant, nothing more than a line on a payroll slip at a dusty hardware store off Route 18. No resume, no past, just steady hands, quiet eyes, and shelves that needed restocking. The rhythm of it suited me. Boxes, numbers, weight, placement, no strategy meetings, no forced smiles, no one asking for deliverables or timelines, just gravity, labor, and the silence of a man people assumed had nothing to say. I liked that. People left me alone. On my breaks, I didn't scroll, didn't text. I read. The store kept a stack of discarded newspapers in the break room, legal listings, zoning notices, city council reports. Most people toss without looking. I started there. Cross-reference parcel numbers. Looked for patterns, overlooked properties, dead-end districts with bones worth waking up. It calmed me, like chess, but with deeds and setbacks. I didn't tell anyone. They wouldn't have cared, until the day a customer left behind her blueprints at the counter, rolled, rubber-banded, half-crushed by a can of paint. She was already gone when I found them. Just instinct, I guess. But I unrolled them during my break and noticed it immediately. The zoning overlay was wrong. The setback margin on the northeast edge would get her flagged before permits even filed. I circled it in pencil, marked the correct boundary, left it on the lost and found shelf with a sticky note, recheck zoning code 44C, parcel line shift. The next morning, the store owner, Rick, waved me into his office. Usually he only called you in when someone stole something or broke a forklift. She came back, he said. The woman said whoever found her blueprints probably saved her 6 months of bureaucratic hell. You know anything about that? I shrugged. He tilted his head. You're not just a stock guy, are you? I didn't answer. He didn't push. But 2 days later, he slid a napkin across the counter. Name, number, time. Buddy of mine, he said, investor, low profile, hates tech bros, builds slow, wants someone who thinks in edges, not headlines. I didn't call right away. I wanted to. I didn't. Not because I was scared, but because after weeks of silence, of erasing myself clean, the idea of building something again felt dangerous, like letting sunlight in after living underground. But then I thought about it. What silence had bought me, the weight I'd shed, the clarity it gave me. I called. We met at a diner that smelled like old coffee and bleach. He wore a denim jacket and ordered lemon pie before anything else. His name was Vince. He didn't ask where I was from, didn't care. He just listened as I sketched out an idea I'd been shaping in my head for weeks. An old lot near the river, 6 parcels underused, potential for modular redevelopment if permits could be woven the right way. He didn't speak for a full minute after I finished, just tapped his fork against the plate. Then he leaned in and said, "Let's build it." That night, I didn't sleep. Not because of nerves, but because for the first time in months, my hands itched with momentum, not rage, not revenge, creation, quiet, intentional creation. I bought a new notebook, not digital, not cloud synced, a hardbound ledger with nothing but grid paper. I began drawing at night, not just plans, but ideas, brand names, lighting concepts, the feeling I wanted people to have when they walked in. I didn't want a company. I wanted a sanctuary for people like me, people who had been broken in bright rooms by smiling faces, people who needed clean tables, warm light, and no questions asked. Within 3 weeks, Vince brought in a second partner, a structural guy, ex-military, steady eyes, no appetite for ego. We walked the river lots together. He asked the right questions. I had the right answers. And just like that, something started moving beneath my feet again. I didn't post about it. No announcements, no website, but word spreads when work is good and hands are steady. By the end of the month, the city council approved a preliminary zoning variance on the first parcel. And somewhere in a city I no longer called home, I imagined her looking at her phone, wondering why my name still didn't appear, not in job listings, not in updates, not in mentions, because I hadn't come back. I'd started over. Not to hide, to outgrow. She didn't even want the appointment. It was routine cleaning she'd postponed twice, blaming her schedule, her stress, the awkwardness of facing strangers who might have seen the video, because of course there was a video. One of the interns had posted a blurry clip from the party, her on the table, laughing, shouting, jumping into the arms of a man barely out of grad school. The internet had a short memory, but offices didn't, not really. Not when someone like her made a scene. She was trying to reclaim normal. That's what she told herself. Sitting in the too-cold waiting room, pretending the receptionist hadn't flinched slightly when she said her name. Pretending her inbox wasn't a graveyard of unsubtle nudges from HR. She glanced at the wall clock, 12 minutes behind schedule. The only thing on the side table was a stack of wrinkled magazines no one had touched since early spring. She grabbed the one on top, flipped it open absently. Page 32 stopped her heart. New face, new spaces. Eli Grant revives abandoned district. The photo was black and white, framed with that over-polished design magazines use when they want something to feel curated. The man in the photo stood in front of a line of exposed brick arches, half-shadowed, slight blur to the edges, not enough to erase him, just enough to keep you wondering. But she knew those eyes, that way of standing slightly off-center, like he never needed to dominate a room because he was already 10 steps ahead of it. Her hands began to tremble. She checked the caption again. Founder of a new modular redevelopment initiative in the River Point corridor, Eli Grant is reshaping how we think about flexible urban workspaces. River Point, that was 3 states away. She stared until her vision blurred, then flipped to the byline. No direct quotes, just third-person admiration, no website, no contact info, just the name. A name she had never heard from his lips, but she knew it belonged to him. She excused herself from the dentist's office, said she felt lightheaded. She nearly forgot her coat. Outside, the cold didn't touch her. In the car, she called the PI. He answered on the second ring. I already told you, nothing's changed. He's using a different name, she whispered. Eli Grant. Silence. Where'd you hear that? He asked slowly. She didn't answer. I'll look into it, he said. But she wasn't waiting anymore. That night, she barely slept. She sat on her bedroom floor, knees pulled to her chest, laptop open. She scoured every combination: Eli Grant Urban Renewal, River Point co-working founder, new modular office build Eli. Not much came up. A few local news snippets, no interviews, no quotes, no social media. He had learned. He had cloaked himself in just enough legitimacy to be visible but unreachable. There was one photo, different angle, the same man, standing next to 2 other men in front of a concrete foundation. No smiles, no captions, just a headline, development underway. She zoomed in. It was him, the way his left hand curled just slightly, the way his jacket pulled at the shoulder like it always had when he hated how something fit but didn't say anything. It was him. Her nails were bitten down by morning. She booked a flight, one way. She didn't pack much. Didn't tell her sister. Just printed the photo and folded it into her wallet like a passport. In the cab to the airport, she tried to imagine what she would say, how she'd start. Would he listen? Would he speak? Would he even admit it was him? Some part of her knew she wasn't chasing reconciliation. That window had closed the moment her heels hit that glass table. What she needed now, desperately, was recognition, proof that she hadn't hallucinated the man she'd built a company with, shared a home with, slept beside for 7 years. She needed to see that she hadn't destroyed a ghost. She needed him to look at her, not with anger, not with love, just with eyes that confirmed, yes, I was real. And as the plane taxied down the runway, she clutched the folded magazine page tighter, like it might vanish if she blinked. She didn't know what she'd do when she found him, but she knew what would kill her if she didn't, not knowing if the man in that photo would even stop to look back. She didn't expect the building to be beautiful. She thought it would be some industrial shell with a clever name, all branding and no soul. But standing there across the street from the River Point redevelopment zone, she saw something different. The structure rose from the ground like it belonged to the future. Glass, steel, and dark stone, layered in clean lines and soft curves. A garden wrapped around one side, the kind with native plants and sculptural benches. It was intentional, calm. Nothing about it screamed. It whispered. She crossed the street too fast, nearly tripping on the curb. Her hands trembled when she pulled the door open. The air inside was cool, silent, not sterile, not corporate, just deliberate. The receptionist didn't look up right away. She was typing something, her nails perfectly square, painted gray like the building's outer trim. I'm here to see, she paused, searching for breath. To see him. I mean, Her voice cracked. Does his full name work here? The receptionist finally looked up. Polite smile, practiced eyes. I'm sorry, there's no one here by that name. No, he's in the article, she said, pulling the wrinkled magazine from her bag, flipping desperately to page 32, pointing at the photo. This is him. He founded this place. Please, just tell him I'm here. The smile vanished. Something cold settled in its place. Ma'am, you need to go. What? We don't accommodate unscheduled guests. Security will escort you out now. And then, as if summoned by ritual, 2 suited guards stepped into view. Not aggressive, not rude, just inevitable. One gestured gently toward the door. This way, please. She didn't move. Her chest tightened. She looked past them, through the sleek lobby toward the wall behind the receptionist. It wasn't a wall exactly, more like a smoked glass partition, stretching from floor to ceiling, barely reflective, hiding something behind it. A conference room? An office? Then, like a shift in light, he appeared, walking behind the glass. Same shoulders, same walk, deliberate, upright, quiet power in motion. He wore navy and charcoal, no tie, a rolled cuff. He was listening to someone beside him, nodding slightly. She stopped breathing. He turned his head, saw her. No stumble, no pause, no flicker of surprise. Just 1 second, then 2. Then he kept walking. She pressed her hand to the glass. Please, she whispered. Not loud enough for anyone to hear, not even herself. The guards stepped closer. She didn't fight them, they didn't push her. But she let herself be guided, like sleepwalking. One hand still ghosting the glass, like maybe the warmth of his gaze might echo there, trapped between layers. Outside, the sun was too bright, the street too loud. She blinked hard, trying to keep the tears from falling, because she didn't want the world to see her break in real time. She reached into her bag and pulled out the magazine again, as if maybe the man on page 32 would offer her something the man behind the wall wouldn't. But he didn't, because he had looked at her and chosen not to see her. She stood there for a long time, not sure if she was waiting for him to come back or just hoping the building would crumble so she could stop feeling so small beneath it. And in that silence, the thing she feared most began to take root. Not that he had vanished, but that he had rebuilt something real, without her. It arrived without warning. No note, no sender. Just a thick black envelope sealed in wax, the kind of thing that looked expensive before you even touched it. Her name was etched in silver script across the front, but not the name she'd built her life around, not the name she had printed on business cards, contracts, investor packets. No, this was the name she'd left behind when she married me. Her maiden name, clean, detached, like the past had already been pried loose. She stared at it for a full hour before opening it. The paper inside was textured, heavy, the kind of stock you didn't throw away. Founder's Circle, private event, it read, River Point District. No date, no location on the front, just a QR code and a phrase at the bottom, by invitation only. She scanned it, the details loaded on her screen like a summons, coordinates, time, dress code, formal. She reread it twice, her breath catching when she realized this wasn't an accident. Someone had chosen her, someone had typed her name, that name, into a guest list. Her hands shook when she tried to unzip her closet. It had been months since she'd worn anything that mattered, since people had looked at her with anything other than whispers or avoidance. But this felt orchestrated. Maybe it was an olive branch, a way back. Maybe he wanted her to see what he'd built, share in it somehow. Maybe this was her second chance to say the things she couldn't fit into a voicemail. She chose a navy dress, fitted, simple, elegant, the kind she used to wear to gala fundraisers when they were still partners in everything. She pinned her hair the way he used to like, understated makeup, small diamond studs. As she stared at herself in the mirror, she realized how long it had been since she dressed for him instead of an audience. The car dropped her off at the edge of the river. The building in front of her shimmered with light and glass, strung with delicate lanterns. People moved inside with the quiet confidence of old money and new ideas. Everyone was dressed like they belonged to something rare. She didn't, but she walked in anyway. The lobby had been transformed into a long corridor of soft music, glass partitions, and curated lighting. A violinist played something classical near the entrance. Staff in black vests moved silently through the crowd with silver trays of champagne. At the far end of the room, under a cascade of crystal chandeliers, he stood. Eli. He wore a tailored suit, no tie, hair slicked back, face unreadable. He looked like a man who had never once begged for anything, like he'd been born in this space and simply waited for the world to catch up. Their eyes met. She didn't smile, neither did he. She stepped forward, unsure of what to say, but before she could reach him, a waiter blocked her path. Polished, polite, practiced, he held a tray. On it was a single name card. "Your place card, ma'am." She took it with shaking fingers. The card read, "Guest, no last name, no designation, no role, not co-founder, not partner, not even her full name, just guest." She looked up at him again. He hadn't moved. He was speaking to someone now, a council member maybe, a tech lead, someone whose opinion mattered, but his gaze slid back to hers for half a second, steady, empty. This wasn't a reunion. It was a reminder. Every inch of this space, the lighting, the music, the positioning of that waiter had been designed, and she wasn't part of it. She wasn't even a character anymore, just a placeholder, a relic from the prologue. She held the card so tightly it crumpled in her hand. People brushed past her. One or two glanced at her face with faint recognition. None stopped. She wasn't his wife here. She wasn't anything. She drifted toward the side of the room, unsure where to stand, unsure how long she could keep breathing without drawing attention to the shame that had already begun to spread across her chest like frost. He had invited her, not to reconcile, to witness, to make sure she understood. She wasn't the story anymore. She was the footnote. The wind picked up just as she stepped outside, tugging at the hem of her dress, pulling her hair loose from its pins. She stood at the edge of the valet circle, heels wobbling slightly on the polished stone. The night air smelled like jasmine and exhaust, like old promises evaporating into cold silence. The building loomed behind her, lit from within like a cathedral. Laughter floated out from the mezzanine. Music pulsed from somewhere deeper in the structure, but out here, it was just her and me. I stood a few paces ahead, talking quietly to the valet as he tapped something into a tablet. I didn't turn when I heard her heels approaching, but I felt her presence. Nervous, brittle, vibrating with words she hadn't figured out how to string together yet. "Please," she said, voice cracking under the weight of everything she hadn't said until now. I turned, slowly, the same way someone might turn toward a painting they've seen too many times to be moved by anymore. She stepped closer. "Why didn't you scream at me?" Her breath was visible in the night air, uneven, sharp. "Why didn't you fight?" I looked at her, not with rage, not even pity, just stillness, like I was observing a stranger in a space she didn't understand anymore. "Because," I said calmly, "when you stood on that table, I realized I wasn't your partner. I was your prop." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then softly, "I didn't mean," I cut her off. "I didn't vanish," I said. "I just stopped showing up for a role I never auditioned for." She blinked as if I'd struck her. The words hung between us, suspended like glass shards mid-fall. "I thought you'd come back," she whispered. "I know." She swallowed hard. "I thought maybe this, tonight, was a way to find a way back." "To what?" I asked. "To us." "There was no us left," I said. "Not after that night." Her eyes darted, looking for something, leverage, forgiveness, an old rhythm to fall into. But I didn't offer any. I wasn't the man who used to finish her sentences or reach for her hand in public because it made her look softer. I wasn't a supporting character in a story that centered her spotlight, not anymore. "You were the loudest person in every room we entered," I said, but somehow I was always the one apologizing. She opened her mouth again, but the words stuck. I could see it, all the rehearsals she must have done in the mirror, the imagined scenarios where she broke down and I stepped in, arms open, heart foolish. But the script had changed. I wasn't reading from it anymore. The valet pulled up in a sleek black sedan, clean, borrowed, quiet. My kind of car now. "I never meant to humiliate you," she said. tears threatening the edge of her voice. "You didn't," I said, stepping toward the car. "You just revealed what was already true." She flinched. The valet opened the door. "I don't know how to fix it," she said behind me, desperation creeping in. "I know," I said again. She reached for my arm. I didn't pull away, but I didn't stay either. "There's nothing left to fix," I said, stepping inside, "only things to remember and things to let go." The door closed with a soft click. Through the window, I watched her shrink in the distance, not physically, but emotionally, like someone who finally realized the final scene had played without her, that the applause she thought was waiting had never existed. The car pulled away. She stayed there, alone in the glow of a building I built without her, in the shadow of a life she never thought I'd choose, without her name attached to it. And behind that velvet voice, that dress, those eyes searching mine for mercy, was the beginning of collapse, because she hadn't lost me tonight. She lost me the moment she pointed at me in front of a crowd and laughed. And now, for the first time, she was finally starting to hear the echo of her own performance. Without a single line left to say, she caught up to the car just as the door closed. One hand landed on the roof, the other reached for me, not forcefully, not dramatically, just enough to say, "Wait," like maybe time could stretch for her one more time. Maybe regret could freeze the air. "We could talk," she whispered, breathless. "Just once. No cameras, no games. Just you and me." I turned slowly, not out of kindness, out of clarity. I wanted her to see it, the stillness, the choice. I looked at her the way someone looks at an old house they used to love but had long since moved out of. "Every toast," I said, voice even. "Every eye roll. Every time you laughed at me in front of people because you thought it was clever, that was your talk." She froze. Her lipstick had faded. Her mascara had creased in the corners of her eyes. The confidence she once wore like armor had collapsed into something smaller, something raw. Her hands trembled just enough to show she wasn't used to not being in control. "I didn't know how bad it was," she murmured. "I did," I said. "I knew every time I had to play along just so you wouldn't turn cold later. Every time I laughed it off while your words dug into me like pins. You wanted a partner who made you look good. You didn't want to be one." Her voice broke. "I didn't mean to." "I know," I said gently, "but meaning something different doesn't rewrite what already happened." She stepped closer. "I miss you." I looked at her, not with anger, not even with pain, just with truth. "I was the man beside you," I said. "Now I'm the man you pointed at." Her mouth fell open slightly. Her shoulders curled inward like the words themselves had pushed her backward. I knew that feeling. I'd lived it, nights in bed, staring at the ceiling while she recounted stories from the party, always casting herself as the dazzling one, always making sure my presence never outshone her performance. Now she was standing in a scene she didn't control, and the silence wasn't waiting for her punchline. The driver stepped around to the front, slid into a seat, adjusted the mirror. I opened the car door again, this time without hesitation. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice cracking. "Forward," I said. "You taught me how." Her hand dropped. I got in, the door closed, quiet, final. The engine hummed beneath us as the car began to roll forward. Through the tinted window I watched her shrink, not in size but in certainty. She didn't chase the car. She didn't shout. She just stood there, her hand falling slowly to her side, her expression hollow, as if some piece of her had been severed and she was just realizing it wouldn't grow back. The driver said nothing. He didn't need to. We moved past the edge of the plaza, the lights of the venue fading behind us. No backward glance, no dramatic soundtrack, just distance, and in that space between us, unbridgeable now, was everything she'd ever said without words. The smirks, the sighs, the dismissals, the way she'd made me feel like a man she needed to manage instead of love. I never had to destroy her. I just had to leave her in a room filled with the silence she once handed me in pieces. And now, for the rest of her life, she would carry one truth. The man who walked away was never yelling. He was just done listening.